I'm just going to be straight up. I don't think I've ever looked at a video game and said, wow, that game cost $500 million. dollars. I bet it's going to be great. I kind of look at it a little bit more objectively and I'd say, oh, this game has uh, this content that I enjoy. It has this kind of quest system, etc., etc. And the budget doesn't really actually matter as much. I mean, obviously it does to an extent, and video games kind of scale with budget, which is kind of interesting because when you look at something like Grand Theft Auto 6, it's probably going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. It's definitely going to recuperate its budget. And then over the long term, it's going to take these shark cards that it sells and it's going to make more hundreds of millions of dollars. But basically, a bunch of AAA game studios are increasing their budgets, and we're going to find out exactly what's going on.
Today we're going to be reckoning with one of the trends that has been the most damaging to gaming. That's because games at the very top end are beginning to get near billion-dollar budgets,
That's
and the
crazy.
industry-wide impact of this is honestly disastrous.
What are they spending $1 billion
New data
on?
reported by GameFile puts Black Ops Cold War at $700 million, and of course, since its release in 2020, costs only seem to have increased. But that
Black Ops Cold War costs $700 million. That's almost twice as much as Concord.
$700 million is just the start.
And this one didn't flop, so I mean, that's a good thing.
That's actually because an unnamed developer told the UK's Competition and Markets Authority that some companies were facing combined costs, so including marketing and such, upward of $1 billion. So if you've ever wondered why your games have turned into shops, why a $70 game suddenly seems like it has to make so much more than $70, it's this kind of thing. If you've wondered about COD's endless torrent of questionable...
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I wonder how much, what was the game called? It was Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Oh. The game sold 30 million copies. So, like, even if it costs $700 million to produce, like, let's say they got $40 revenue on average from each copy before microtransactions for 15 million right off the rip. That's $600 million. They more than recuperated their money.
Quality cosmetics, well, there's that. Or perhaps why we're seeing multiple studios have shut down over just the last few months. This stuff matters, and that's because of contrast. We will see today, yes, the excesses of the industry, but also a AAA, single-player, narrative game studio that is trying to do things different with Remedy. But of course, before that, well, we gotta deal with this report, because for Activision, that money is well spent. For their opponents, it perhaps isn't. So here's the deal. Stephen Totillo, who runs GameFile, was pouring through legal documents stemming from an ongoing court case, and he came across redacted data that has not been reported on before. And what he found, right, was a declaration from Patrick Kelly, who is the head of creative for Call of Duty, and he just shared these numbers. They're kind of wild. Black Ops 3 cost 450 million and sold 45 million copies. Modern Warfare cost
45 million. Oh my god. Well, that's also, people are probably still buying it over the last couple of years, so we're also talking an extra, I don't know, I'm curious, whenever Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War came out, what Black Ops 3 was sitting at copy-wise. It was probably more like 30, and then it sold another 13 million copies because people just still like the game. This is insane. It's a lot of money.
140 million and sold 41 million copies, and Black Ops Cold War cost 700 million and sold 30 million copies, which is less, but still, that's a lot of copies sold. And even though the troubled development of Cold War
It's like at least enough money to buy a McDouble.
likely factors into its cost, we're still seeing cost rises of like 50 million a year. But make no mistake, this is a money printer. But It's doing something industry-wide that is impacting all of us. Here is a quote from the leadership of Insomniac Games. This was them speaking about Spider-Man 2, and it's a brutal quote. Is 3x the investment evident to anyone who plays the game? I set that to you. I've not actually got into Spider-Man 2 yet. I still haven't finished 1. But 2 cost $300 million. 1 cost $100 million. That's got quite the impact on profitability. He does make a good point. Spider-Man 2, per the leaks, had to...
What costs all this money? Like, I understand the games are like very difficult to make, but how do you spend $400 million on a game?
Hit over 7 million sales just to break even. But the thing is, this is actually not a problem for Activision. Modern Warfare 2 crossed $1 billion of sales in 10 days, which is 5 days faster than Black Ops 2's 15-day record, and that's, of course, all without the extremely aggressive microtransaction money and the Black Cell Battle Pass and all that stuff that goes on pretty...
It's probably where they made most of their money, to be honest. And they definitely have a lot of whales, and those whales are definitely spending like a couple $100,000
shortly after the launch.
And this kind of stuff, you don't even hear about this stuff.
So, for Call of Duty, ROI on this insane amount of money is guaranteed.
I could be wrong. I don't know how the microtransactions work in here. There might be like a hard cap.
That's why they've got 3,000 odd people on Call of Duty as of 2022. And skimping clearly does not work either, and we kind of have data to show that. Modern Warfare 3 was famously cobbled together a shit show that was not well received. Black Ops was not. It had 4 years of development, and that does appear to have shown, well, subjectively in the game, because it's great, but also in the sales. PlayStation and Steam sales were up 60% over Modern Warfare 3. That is well worth the price of an extra year of development.
These are also like really good games. Like even the single player campaigns, they're really, really good. I haven't played the newer ones, but Call of Duty has always been really good at just writing stories in general.
And if you're pretty damn sure that you're going to get, say, Red Dead Redemption 2 levels of sales, you'll feel pretty okay spending a Red Dead Redemption 2 level of money. But those games, COD especially, are unique. In a way, they're the worst of industry access, but they're working. Here's the problem, though. Their results are what every exec wants, and that is what has done so much damage. The big players are fighting for two things, currency and time, and Call of Duty comes off pretty damn well in that fight. It's one of the games that occupies the 75% of gaming...
I don't know. I wonder if Skyrim was released today, as it is in probably like its most perfect form, I guess. I don't know, with like the least amount of bugs, the most amount of patches, etc. I wonder how it would do in comparison to a lot of the AAA games that are released now. Skyrim had a massive budget, but I feel like it would be a lot easier to do with today's technology.
Concurrency that is taken up by the 5 most played games. There's an insane amount of consolidation at the top end. Now here's the thing, if you're a big AAA, well, what do you need to do? What do you need to compete with to get that type of audience? Call of Duty. I mean, even take an old but very direct example. EA Games almost ran Battlefield into the ground the first time, and they quite literally destroyed Medal of Honor as a franchise, basically. All in a
Medal of
vain
Honor
attempt
used to be huge.
To fight Call of Duty on its own terms with yearly releases. It didn't work, and writ large, just about nobody is succeeding here. We have seen countless dead live service titles, more and more aggressive business models that just aggravate us, and even the old-fashioned way isn't always working. Take Square Enix, they like to make big, graphically wowing games, but Final Fantasy, outside of 14, has been a continual disappointment. The budget sides of FF7 Rebirth and FF16 meant that profits failed to meet the company's expectations.
Yeah, I think that's because most Final Fantasy fans just play Final Fantasy 14 now. It's an MMO, it has updates, it's live service.
And that again is where I call up the Insomniac quote. Is 3 times the investment evident to anyone who plays the game? I'd argue that in most cases, it ain't. That's what Sean Layden lamented when he was talking about the AA game space basically collapsing and the complete unsustainability of AAA in a world where the companies are gearing up to fight Call of Duty, but without the brand recognition, the consumer yearly purchase patterns, and the sheer budget. Back when EA pushed for yearly Call of Duty competition, they were also doing fun things like live servicifying their entire lineup, all trying to chase the same.
Now, I mean, Black Myth Wukong had a budget of $43 million. And it sold 25 million copies. That's since August, by the way. Like, we're talking the difference between Black Myth Wukong between August and now, and Black Ops Cold War between 2020 and now, is like 8 million.
Same types of dynamics. We know, as an example, the Dragon Age 4.
But the difference between the budget is 657 million.
Was initially a live service title. To me and you in first principles, that's a completely stupid idea because it's not what Dragon Age is, but to the midwit investors and executive types, well, they're looking at the business models that they are seeing convert and drive stocks up. Activision can afford to spend close to $1 billion to sell you a $70 game when they've got a yearly track record of selling upward of 40 million copies. Just about no one else can do that, but you can see it from the C-suite. Why would you have another one-and-done Batman Arkham game when you can play in the big leagues with an ongoing live service title? I mean, imagine you are on a board. What's a better sell? Oh, we're going to continue as normal with another one, but better than the last one. Or, we have a massive plan for outsized growth that capitalizes on the business model of the future that gamers want, as shown by spend and playtime. One of those things is going to...
I don't know. I feel like it just depends on the investor, to be honest. They probably really thought this was going to work, and it probably could have worked if they did it in a different way. But because of the way that it was actually set up, it didn't.
To look more investable than the other. But I didn't do this video just to be a doomer. There is good news. And it's news wrapped up in the story of how Remedy want to not die and basically be free. So here's the deal. Remedy are trying to work out their future, and as a part of that, they made a 5-year promise to their investors, and in that, they committed to releasing 2 AAA self-published games designed to be sustainable and profitable. Of course, you then think, how? How are you going to do this in a world where AAA narrative studios are shutting down and it's all doom and gloom? Do you have a magic solution or a massive pile of Alan Wake 2 money? Well, the answer is no to the Alan Wake 2 money. That game has still not turned a profit for them. Now, yeah, being an Epic exclusive in some ways doesn't help, but Alan Wake 2 only exists because Epic funded it. Sam Lake, who is the creative director and also the literal face of Max Payne, he said that Alan Wake 2 would have happened in 2010 if anyone had been willing to fund a single-player narrative game. So yeah, the deal was basically money now at the cost of money later, and when the game does break even, obviously Remedy will be getting a 50% cut of that revenue per their publishing agreement. Now, many of the default reactions here are totally going to be, yeah, well, you should have been in Steam, that's where the PC gamers are, but without Epic, Alan Wake 2, the single-player horror game, would not have existed. That's because games like that don't tend to get made as much anymore.
I mean, yeah, it just sounds like Epic funded them.
And for the longest time, the reason why was obvious. People were looking at other business models, other types of games. I mean, even going back to his day, there was another publisher who was funding single-player narrative horror games. They're called Electronic Arts, and we all know how that turned out with Dead Space 3. All of this is why their new plan matters. Here's their actual plan with real budgets. For context, Alan Wake 2 cost €53.5 million to develop. There was additional, of course, in marketing and such.
Not that bad.
So here's the deal. Their next 2 self-published games, which are FB...
Now, I think that single-player narrative-driven games are making a comeback, and I think that we're going to see a lot more of them in the coming years. Mostly because of games like Elden Ring and Black Myth Wukong. I'm curious, I don't know what the sales numbers are for Elden Ring. Elden sales. 28.6 million copies. Black Myth Wukong has almost caught up with Elden Ring in copies sold. That's crazy. That's crazy. Um, but I definitely think that we're gonna see a lot more narrative-based games in the future. I just think that they need to be done in a certain way, and companies are gonna start adapting to what people want.
See Firebreak, which is a spin-off of Control, and Control 2 are budgeted for 30 million euros with a $40 asking price and 50 million euros with a full AAA asking price, with sales estimates being between 3 and 4 million. And that's basically what they're wanting to do to break even and then in the long run be profitable, because those games will be assets that'll just keep on selling for years and years and years, because unlike the countless dead live service games that no one will ever touch, you can buy Alan Wake and play it, and the same goes for Max Payne, and you can buy the Alan Wake remaster, because it turns out if you make something that's got real value, it'll have real value, and you can sell it for a long time. And it's not that they're making these games with tiny teams.
Skyrim sold over 60 million copies between 2011 and now. That's it's just a quick Google search. I mean, you compare this to other live service games and stuff like that. Yeah, it's one of the biggest single player games ever, but that's a lot. And what was the budget for Skyrim? Skyrim budget. Skyrim only cost $100 million to make, which was 85 million for development and 15 million for marketing.
Remedy are 365 spread across 2 studios plus 250 external devs. Their main base is in Finland, which is higher than the average European cost of living. They have another base in Stockholm, I believe, which is, I also believe, a very expensive city. And graphically, it's not like they're making little, indie PSX games in the cheap. No, these games are stunning. But you know what they're not? They're not hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's why the utter AAA graveyard is actually a good thing. Remedy are able to do this because of design. Control and Alan Wake 2 are visually stunning games, but in one of them, to be reductive, you're traipsing around a forest, and in the other one, you're traipsing around a building. It's not really billion-dollar set pieces.
Well, I mean, even with, I think, new games where you are doing billion-dollar set pieces, I think what's the budget for Grand Theft Auto 6? GTA 6 budget. Oh my god. Wait, hold on. No, I don't think that's true. There was a leak saying that GTA 6 was going to be around a $2 billion budget. But I'm kind of seeing mixed signals about that, so I'm probably going to guess it's around $1 billion. But it could be 2. But I think with AI development, and this is kind of speculation, in 10 to 15 years, a game like Grand Theft Auto 6 will be able to be made with AI by a much smaller team on an eighth of the budget. Whatever the budget is.
Everywhere, but not
Maybe
only
even
do they
less than
not
that.
need
I don't
to
know.
be that, it wouldn't serve them being that. Alan Wake blows me away with its art direction, its craft. The rest is how that's achieved. When Control makes a pleasing noise and blasts me with some really cool looking triangles, that's artistry, not a dump truck of money. Remedy make cost-controlled AAA games that leverage their artistic mastery to achieve player experiences that other firms spend far more money and years striving for, and of course, perhaps even self-sabotage with live service ambitions. It will never make Remedy billions of dollars. They have not promised their investors billions of dollars, and shockingly enough, their investors do seem to be happy. Now, this is not me saying that Remedy is a charity. No, it's not a charity. It is a profit-seeking business. But it also appears to be a mission-driven business. Its mission is to make the types of games that they want to make. But far more importantly, it also understands something. Greed would rob them of the success they...
Well, I don't necessarily think that's true. I'm sure Alan Wake could probably succeed if they put some microtransactions in it. Uh, but I think they just kind of understand their market and they're doing what they feel is the most efficient way forward. And I think this guy's making good points, but I don't think this is some like moral high ground that they're standing on.
They do have a giant live service play that leaves them leveraged to their tits with insane risk would
This also like this kind of game doesn't really work with live service. So I mean, there's no point.
probably fail and almost certainly would kill the company. Then they'd have nothing. Rather shockingly, all of this is in spite of Remedy being a publicly traded company and one having a stock chart that looks like this. Our lesson here is simple, it's awesome, and now that we have more data of the top end of the industry, man, I love it. The whole line go up mantra has failed developers, failed creativity, failed gamers. Sam Lake said it, right? You weren't going to get an Alan Wake 2 funded with the way that things were. And we've all seen it in games. There's near endless accounts everywhere, including, say, the ones within Blizzard, where Blizzard couldn't even commit to making an RTS. You know, real-time strategy. The thing that Blizzard literally foundationed its business on. And what's best is this is tangibly useful for you and me. You see, Sony can afford to do what it does to, well, just about spend what it spends because of its dominant console position and its first-party business model. So if you just yanked things from Sony, you'd be learning lessons like wrong. They don't apply to you. Call of Duty and its big live service model, all of that spend, that's okay because their return on investment is rather proven. But it's that Call of Duty and live service type revenue that is motivating investors. It's the business model that they want. A combination of that and the first part.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about AAA game studios, so we're talking about what is it, like EA, Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft, what else? Nintendo, Square Enix, Rockstar, Bethesda, Capcom, like.
Party factor is why Sony thought, oh, sick, we'll do a Concord, it's going to be great. When, obviously, it was doomed to fail. And here's where it's super tangible for me and you. This is not one-to-one, but it makes the point, right?
Concord wasn't doomed to fail. Concord would have succeeded if the game was good. It's not. I don't understand why the thought process of like Concord was doomed to fail. I'm sure a lot of people would have enjoyed Concord if it was good. It was just frightfully mid.
How many people lose their money chasing the next big trend or the next big viral stock? You know, they see, oh, Tesla went up, Palantir went up, Nvidia went up, and then they think they can time the market. They end up losing, and they lose a hell of a lot of money. That is our analog for a lot of the mistakes at the top end of this industry, versus what Remedy seem to be doing, which is boring. It's the equivalent of putting a little bit of money away each month into an index fund. It ain't sexy, it's not going to lead you to explosive growth, but it's sustainable. It works. And perhaps, if that is sustainable and works, you can get on with the thing that matters, which is the craft and making something. Because in a world of delusion where companies just thought, oh, we can do a Call of Duty, we can do a Destiny, whatever it is, that's just survivorship bias, leading fools to lose a lot of money. And yeah, personal finance and big business are different, but I think the point is clear. Remedy should be celebrated for this sort of model. Let's hope that more are to follow. And I have a hell of a story to follow this video with. It is about Ubisoft. Don't worry, you don't need to be an Assassin's Creed fan, because really, it's a corporate family drama. It's a...
I mean, yeah, no, he makes a couple good points that I don't think it's really a problem with smaller game studios trying to emulate what big game studios like Activision Blizzard do. Because it's pretty impossible for that to happen. I mean, it's just... You do see microtransactions in smaller games, but not nearly on the level as like... at least with single player, like story-driven games like that. Not on the level of, big AAA game studios, I guess. Or MMOs in general. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Uh, I would really appreciate it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section, and I will see you in the next one.